What was your family of origin like, and what kind of culture did you both experience when it came to the topic of sex, sexuality, sexual brokenness?
Well, that's an interesting story because I'm not blaming my folks. I know they did the best they could, but they both came from trying to escape their own family of origin, really.
Hmm.
And I didn't quite understand what was going on. I grew up with the babysitting, using the TV for that, black and white, and I loved westerns,
Yes.
Gene Autry, Roy Rogers, all the favorites,
That's awesome.
and The Rifleman was a big one.
Hmm.
But they worked late at night, and they were off doing their own thing, which we're grateful for. But the topics of sex wasn't really spoken. I remember I got real excited one weekend. My folks took me on a cattle drive out in the Hawaii Mountains. That's out in the sagebrush, and I got to ride my own horse. I was probably 8, 9 years old. I thought it was really wonderful. I mean, we'd take the cattle just like in the movies, and we'd push them from one pasture to another, and at the end of the trail ride, we'd gather them up, and they'd go through the cattle chute. That was man, I thought I was on fire. And then we'd gather up for the meal time at the campsite. They had this old barn, and I was drawing the barns and equipment and tractors, and I went out in the barn, and to my amazement, there was a whole wall full of pornography on the walls.
Mm.
And I didn't realize what I was seeing, but I was intrigued, and the cunning part of it. And then my dad came in and took me out of there. And then later on that night around the campfire, they turned it around on me to make me a joke.
Hmm.
And I thought, wow, my folks aren't even safe. I got to hide this.
Yeah.
So something that started really early, knowing that my own parents didn't have the words to choose and guard me from all this. So that was a hard time.
Vicki, what about you? What was your family of origin around this topic?
I was raised in the 60s and 70s, and I had a hardworking dad, and my mom took us to church. There was no purity culture. My mom was pretty open about things, but open about letting me do what I wanted to do, not telling me I, had to follow any rules, really. But I did follow rules because I'm like one of those naturally kind of modest rule-following people. But sexually, there was nothing talked about at home.
Mm.
There was not even intimacy modeled at home. They were very careful not to be. That I don't even remember seeing my parents hold hands.
Mm.
If my mom kissed my dad, he'd act silly, like he was embarrassed in front of his kids. And if I had questions about sex as I was getting older, my mom would seem to be so embarrassed and uncomfortable, I stopped asking. But books would miraculously appear in my room later about the topic I'd asked about.
Yeah.
So I kind of it was a peer education and reading, and kind of learning mom's so uncomfortable, I don't want to do that to her, So it didn't, and we got married really young. Neither one of us knew what we were doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.